Jeff Houghton for Enactus. We're at the World Cup 2016, and I have Aaron Sherinian with the UN Foundation. And Aaron, tell me about the UN's goals with sustainability.
So the global goals for sustainable development are the path. They're the roadmap for us so that we can make progress on those big issues, those big challenges that can also be our big opportunities in the world. So whether we're talking about hunger, poverty, education for all, making sure that we're talking about the climate of our planet and how energy and jobs relate. There's 17 trackable goals, a to-do list, if you will, with real metrics behind them so that the world can be matching and accountable for the progress that we're supposed to be making toward a better world that everyone wants.
Now tell me, how does climate change, I think, is fascinating in the sense that it's not just its own issue within its silo. There are all these issues related to that, and how can helping curb climate change work with those issues?
You know, climate change is a good example of something that we've heard here at Enactus all day, and that is these goals are goals that need proper, thoughtful attention and a lot of action and entrepreneurial action, but they also need to be related to one another. And I've been so impressed that the Enactus community here today has been talking about connections between the goals. In the case of climate, we all realize that unless we can make sure to mitigate and have the adaptation necessary and the resilience necessary for real climate action, there's not a whole lot of a point in doing anything else, because we're not going to have a world here that we can live in and that we can all prosper in. So climate change is a great example because it relates to so many things, but it takes years of work to get to it. But all the goals are related.
So it sounds like the UN Foundation has said these are things that are going to take a while, and so we need to buckle down and not try to look for quick fixes that may have been problematic.
So what the UN is doing, and we as the foundation, we love to support and talk about their work in making sure that people know we're in a hurry because we got to get it done, but we've got to get it done right, and we've got to measure it. So that instead of saying we're going to take any solution, we want to look at the best solutions. We want to make sure that they're mapped to a time frame. We've only got 14 years left, but these are doable. It's ambitious, but doable. And that's unique. That's something that our generation has for the first time, a set of openly crowdsourced goals that are going to be openly accountable for the people, because we're the ones who have to get the work done. And that's something exciting.
And it sounds like a summary of the best goal setting is ambitious and doable.
Ambitious, doable, and I'd like to add measurable. These are goals that we have the tools. We've all got social media in our hands. We've got technology to share so that we can track, are we doing enough? What can we do more of? And who else can we invite to the table so that we can get the job done?
And speaking of inviting to the table, what role do you see young people playing in all this?
Well, if we're talking about goals where we're looking at the 2030 world, these are not things that will be a maybe for the Enactus community or young people. This is the world that you're living in, operating in, having jobs in, getting married in, building your home in. That's your world. So 2030 might look like it's far away on the calendar. It is right around the corner when it comes to implementation. So getting these things in place, having some risk, experimenting and innovating means that it sounds cliche, but this really is a young world, and it's a young world that has to take the action on them, because that's the world we're all going to be living in 2030.
So here we are at Enactus with young people. How do you, it seems like a great fit between Enactus and these goals that you have. How do you see that fit?
I'm so happy that Enactus has embraced the Sustainable Development Goals, that they've looked at them as a framework for talking about these amazing projects that exist so that they can ladder up to something very big. They ladder up to something that it's not just about changing my community, but it's about changing my world, so that I know that my project in Australia or in Indonesia or wherever it would be is actually laddering up to something that is a global initiative, so that we can get to zero poverty, so that we can get to education for all, so that no one is left behind. These are things that help you ladder those good, small, scalable projects up to something very bold.
So it seems like to conquer these big goals takes a lot of people doing things in small ways that can get bigger.
In small ways, but also in ways that can scale and that can connect with one another. So projects that are entrepreneurial in nature, that create action and that can get something going, when they learn from one another, that's where great stuff happens. I just came out of a session where some people were talking about an education project in Nigeria. And immediately I could see one of the delegates from Australia thinking about how it would interact with her project. And that's exciting, because they're scalable, immediately implementable learning. That's a lot of words to say, adopt it, know about it, and put it into action.
So has seeing the students of Enactus, I imagine it's pretty inspiring for you with what you accomplish?
This is an inspiring place because of the people. It's an inspiring place because of the ideas. It's an inspiring place because there's urgency with smarts. And that doesn't mean just doing anything. It means doing what's smart for the world and what will build me the world in 2030 that we all want to have.
So what would your message be to, if we have folks that are supporting Enactus watching this, what would your message be to those people and how they can collaborate to accomplish these goals that the UN has set out?
The message for me is to know that the students of Enactus are laddering up to and rallying around the framework of the Sustainable Development Goals, and they're counting on good examples. So if there's an organization, a large company, maybe a small business, anyone who can serve as a mentor or an inspiring actor in your life, you should also be seeing how you're rallying up to the goals. The entrepreneurs of Enactus are doing it. We need the biggest brands, the largest companies, the small businesses. Everyone can do it and show how they're having an impact in what is their commitment to the world. That's the first call to action. The second thing is learn about them and share them. I've been so moved by how the Enactus community here is willing to share and talk about the goals, stand behind them, ask about them, and help refine them.
And it seems as though it's a lot of what Enactus does so well is it's doing the thing and then learning how to communicate it well.
Communicate it by sharing it and being honest about it. You know, entrepreneurial action means that there's going to be some failure, it means there's some risk, and it means there's going to be some learning along the way. So that's the best way to communicate it, by telling a real story.
Yeah, well, thanks for standing here with us and communicating the message of the UN sustainability and how that works with Enactus. Aaron, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.